This is my assessment of Raid-wise Razorgore from May 21st. So what you see right now, I've paused the video that I recorded. I've got the most interesting thing about where we're paused right now is the composition of the raid. So the odd groups are going to the far side of the room, and the even groups are staying on the near side. I think one of the most important things to note here, because it will be important later, is that both Barn and Miracle are the two tanks on the far side, and Miracle is going to be the one controlling the orb, or at least that's the plan. So anyhow, the first phase isn't super interesting. I think it goes as expected. It looks like DPS and healing was balanced appropriately for the fight, so we didn't have anything interesting show up. However, things start to get interesting when we try and do the orb transition, which, looking at my notes, looks like it's about 10:43 in the video. So I'll scroll to there. So at 10:43, we can see Miracle is in position right here to take the orb. We've got the last egg right here, which is the perfect spot for it to be. Having it there means we can maximize our uptime on damaging the boss. In the ideal world, we'd have all of the melee DPS stacked right there on that egg, hitting FAP, ready to go. Let's watch what actually happens here, though. So it looks like, here we go, Miracle is controlling the orb, but oops, he takes a couple steps forward there. And so we were a little bit confused as to what happened when this went down, but it's pretty clear from the video. He started mind controlling and started moving forward a little bit too quickly, so that breaks the orb. And if you've never controlled the orb before, there is a debuff that you get when you control it so that you can't control it again immediately. So at this point, we're kind of screwed because our orb controller has that debuff. And so what you should see next is Ooze makes a really smart play here and immediately goes and starts controlling the orb. I mean, I was looking in the logs, and I think that was less than 2 seconds between Miracle dropping it and Ooze picking it up. So that was a really clutch play here. And one of the things that I think, in particular, a mistake I made was I wanted Ooze to break it. Ooze didn't have world buffs, and so, breaking the egg means, especially if you're not a tank, you're probably just going to die because you have perma aggro. So I really wanted Ooze to break it here, but I didn't say that. I just told him to pick it up. So he has it picked up, but what he's doing, which is probably the most conservative and smart play, is he's holding it, waiting on Miracle's debuff to drop, right? But there was confusion in the raid, which I should have cleared up about what was going on there. The other thing I like to note about this is look at Leglock. He is right where he needs to be. He's got his fat pot. He's ready to go. Every melee should be in this position. And I guess, I think a lot of them were concerned because at this point we realized there was an issue. Miracle said he didn't have the orb. Ooze was on it. I wasn't being clear about what needed to happen. But anyhow, you'll see what happens here is that Ooze ends up holding it. He ends up dropping the orb, I think with the intent of Miracle picking it back up. The issue is I don't think Miracle was ready for that. So again, just lack of communication here, a little bit of confusion. But what ends up happening is, I've got it on slow-mo, so let's speed up a little bit. Ooze ends up dropping the orb. He ends up dying because Razorgore goes to him. Final Mint kind of saves the day, picks up the orb, breaks the last egg, and we are, from there, we're able to recover at least a little bit. There's more mistakes that are made in this encounter that we'll get to in a minute. But let's go ahead. Let me look at a good timestamp to move forward to. All right, 11:20 is when Final Mint picks up the orb. So let's go there. All right, so we can see Final Mint's got the orb controlled. And look, Miracle is in place trying to get it. I think I'm not sure how long the debuff lasts. That's something I need to research. But Final Mint's there. He's waiting like Ooze did, hoping that Miracle can pick it back up. But at this point, I think we're all just yelling, "Break it!" Get the egg. We got it. We've got so many ads out. You can see my fear's on cooldown. I think almost all of the warriors have their fear on cooldown because we've been trying to CC this entire time. So Final Minute ends up breaking the orb. You'll see that here in a second. And because he breaks that last one, that means he's going to have aggro. So you'll see Razorgore take off. And at this point, I'm mostly concerned with making sure I have rage, which I'm at 100, so that I can be second on aggro when Final Minute gets the conflag. So we'll see that actually works out as expected. Let's go forward here a little bit. Some good fears, good CC. It's a miracle that only Uzi and GZ are dead right now. Like, there's a lot of chaos, so the healers are doing a great job. Okay. So here, Final Minute has aggro. You can see Razorgore is going. This is a pretty sweet play by him. I was telling him to drop down, but it actually was really smart. Him keeping himself alive for that little extra time, like kiting Razor like that, allowed me to get a Bloodthirst off and get some aggro. And you can see I'm top on threat here. So the issue is I can't take threat until Final gets conflagged because that's the way the mechanic works. So there it was. It comes to me as expected. The positioning is a little bit off here. Like typically, I'd have my back to this wall right underneath the orb. Razor would be facing that. But I kind of left it here because it felt like this was probably the most appropriate positioning given the state of things. A big mistake I made here was I haven't fapped yet. And if you look, it's hard to see, but I have this debuff where I was stunned. So aggro is a little bit lower, but it didn't end up costing us in this case. But I definitely should have pre-fapped. I was a little bit confused about the state of things and the chaos that was going on, so I missed it. So anyhow, it's on me. Things are looking good, right? Barn has top aggro, Miracle's second, which is exactly what we wanted. Here we see Lutheus jump ahead. So if you are ranged on this, you need to be making sure that you're not, you're behind the next tank. So it's close though. Miracle's right up there, so I know it's going to be close. The thing I'm looking for now though is, hey, Final Minute just died. That means it will actually go to our second tank rather than back to him. So we're in a really good spot. Here's the issue, though. Miracle comes in. I think he was a little bit confused about how conflag works, potentially. He and I can discuss that. But he's in. He's going to have next aggro, and I think he's kind of preparing to pick it up, and he doesn't want the position to change too much. That's why he's moving into position. Unfortunately, what happens is he's going to get hit by the conflag, and so number 1 on threat and number 2 on threat are going to end up conflagged, which means it's going to start running through the raid. And we'll see that here in a second. And there it is. We're both conflagged. Razorgore's on age 0 right now, and we'll kind of bounce around between a few of the melee. I think we end up losing 6 people on this fight, 4 of them right now. Age 0 goes down. Who else? Dagwood gets aggro, but he lives. He survives. He's got pretty good gear, I think, and is wearing some plate. Tater goes down here, which is disappointing. Not his fault. Nothing you can do about that. And Flexo, yeah. So it bounced around through some of the warriors. What I would like to see the warriors do in this situation is, if you're a DPS warrior and you've got pretty good gear, you can tank this guy. He's not going to gib you if you're getting hills. So really we should be like watching your threat and either lipping, or if you're not lipping, you need to be positioning him away from the raid so that conflag doesn't hit everybody. All right, so that fight was a little bit chaotic, but went fairly well. In terms of what I think went particularly well was, I think Ooze and Final Minute saved the raid with their orb pickups. In particular, I think it was really great that Final was able to break that last orb and selfless enough to kind of sacrifice himself. I'm not 100% sure if he had buffs or whatnot, but you're guaranteed to die pretty much if you do that, and Final Minute did it. So that was he's probably the MVP on this fight. The healers were on point despite like tons of chaos. 5 out of the 6 deaths were because Razorgore meleeed the person down. GZ died, and I want to discuss that a little bit, going back to the group comp thing. GZ died because of a strategic blunder that I made, and in particular, he's in group 7, which is an odd group. both of the tanks from the odd side were preoccupied for the last egg, which means there's going to be some ads running around without tanks. And so that was an oversight I made, that it resulted in GZ pulling aggro, not having a warrior there, and him dying to one of the dragonkin, I believe. So, you know, it was a strategic problem, first of all, that could have been addressed like in the moment by a call to collapse the raid, which I didn't make, or anything like that. But that didn't happen. That's why GZ died. So the healers like really did a great job. No one died that shouldn't have, or due to healing. I think another thing that went well was Leglock's position, and him fapping and knowing exactly what to do, being proactive about it. That's how you get like really good parses, right? You know what's coming and you're prepared for it. Belicio was also right there with a fap on when I was looking at the video. So I think a few of the melee knew exactly what to do and were like pre-positioning, and so that was really good play on their part. What went poorly was obviously the orb transition. And in particular, like, people mess up the orb all the time. That's going to happen, especially when it's your first time. But I don't think I did a great job of communicating what the recovery plan was. There were people ready and there, but it was just, you know, some ambiguity about the call that was made. And so I think that could definitely be improved, and something that I need to work on. Then finally, the tank positioning on the conflag. You know, I think this one is a mistake we probably won't make again because it's obvious. But the tank is the only person who needs to be in front of Razorgore when they're tanking them, because that conflag is like a cone and you drop aggro when you get conflagged. So ideally we have the OT second on threat on one of the back legs, all of the melee DPS on the other. And that way, when the conflag happens and he turns, it still won't... The OT can adjust just a little bit, and not a ton, and none of the melee DPS are going to get cleaved or anything like that. So in terms of how to address kind of some of the things that didn't go so well, one thing I want to try, and I don't know if this will actually work out, but given that our raid schedule, we've got almost an entire week until the next raid, it might be interesting to get the tanks in and practice orb clicking. I'm not sure, you know, we may have to be careful about accidentally getting saved to an instance, like if Razorgore blows up or something. But assuming that's not an issue, that's something I want to do. I want to do it myself too, because another option in this raid in particular, I could have just went up and clicked the orb. But I didn't do that, and so mainly because I haven't done it before, and I wasn't sure how my UI was going to interact with it. But that's something we can easily prepare for. And then finally, I think just making sure I'm extremely explicit about the position when we are killing Razorgore and who should be where. So that is it for this video. I think one thing to note is, you know, losing 6 people doesn't seem like a big deal, but I think we lost like 3 Ward Chief's Blessings and Songflowers, and the impact of that is actually pretty big. It's like probably over 1,000 DPS to our raid. So that is it for Razorgore.